Yeah, I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
All right, welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast. We are here on site at Thistle Hill, which is a historic piece that Brent's going to talk about now, because that's all I've got.
I wanted to do a shout out to all you guys that are on Patreon. I really appreciate your support. It continues to grow. I hope you like this new format where we're out on the jobs. We think we can train and teach better when we're looking at stuff and pointing at stuff. So if you're doing the audio version, you're going to miss out some stuff. It'll be on YouTube, but it's certainly on Patreon. And we're sharing information because we want everybody to get better as master builders. And going back and looking at this house and another historic house we're going to look at on another episode helps us all get better. So, Thistle Hill.
Did you want me to do that? Sorry.
Thistle Hill. That was the introduction you should have done. 1904, it was built, and then it was redone in like 1910, 1911, okay? So, this is an amazing house, okay? This was a gift from the dad to the daughter, so it's a nice house. There's some cool things here, and if you go to my YouTube page, I've done a bunch of videos on this, things we can learn from the past. But they have one of only two carriage houses in Texas that was originally built, so I think 1904, for both horse and buggy, as well as cars, as well as motor cars. And so he had both, and so we're building right during that kind of time frame, that time period. Solid masonry walls, all the materials inside are super rich. I mean, there's bird's eye maple bedroom, which is stupid crazy.
What is that?
You'll see.
You'll see.
All right.
And so, anyway, an incredibly well-built house. This used to be a row of incredible houses all up and down here. It has since become more, commercialized, and there's hospitals and stuff.
It's kind of ironic that there's like this gym and it's literally walled by like parking garages.
And a Texaco just across the way.
And it was slated for demolition in the 70s, I believe, and literally people were in front of, chained themselves to these walls.
What?
And
were you one of them?
and then
don't do it.
I was,
as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I was 10 at the time, but I believed in it. And so they saved it from destruction at that time, and it's slowly been restored, and it's being restored at a super high level. I mean, if you just look at that brick pillar right there, the brick, the mortar's falling out. In fact, there's a company here, Mid-Continental Restoration, is going to repoint and redo all the masonry on this thing, cleaning it and everything else.
Wow.
Anyway, it's an incredible job. There's a ton of research. There's an architect, Norm Alston, who's helping us out with this stuff. My project manager and I both care about these historic details, and so anyway, it's an awesome, fun project.
You're actually working on it?
No.
Okay,
yes.
Great. I haven't been here in a while. Yep. This was a part of the History Channel show.
Yep.
And we built a pool table for in here.
I found a pool table in the basement that was been disassembled, and we redid it, and it was about a 1908 pool table.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a bunch of things I wanted to just get some clarity on.
All right.
Father to daughter, do we know the family or like historic Fort Worth stuff, or is it a secret?
No, it's called the Wharton Scott House. Okay. So Wharton was the first one, built it for his daughter. The Scotts were the second owner, and they're the ones who, if you look at the 1904 edition, it looks much more Victorian than this house. And then it was redone in 1911 in this neoclassical style. So this is neoclassical.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It feels very neo.
Yeah.
Classic. Look at the cool things. I mean, those columns right there, solid masonry. I mean, solid limestone. Okay. We're trying to build some columns on another house, and we can't get that anymore.
Why
we're
not?
wanting to make it in wood. We're wanting to make it in cast stone. And if it is done in stone, it's very hard to get a single piece of limestone that tall, that large, that has entasis and everything else. And then you also see the clean line, right? See where there's a dark line and then it's clean below? The masonry contractor has gone around and restored or cleaned a bunch of different areas, and I'll show you a couple of those.
Wait, what, to Richard's point, why not? Is it just because they don't
Why not
have,
what?
like, why can't you buy a slab of limestone and carve it out like David?
Because people don't build like this anymore, okay? And so the call for solid, turned limestone is just, I mean, when this was built in 1904, there was probably 20 or 30 companies that could do this.
Wow.
Now, there may be 2. And so
That's crazy.
the machinery, the lack of people calling for it, the fragility of it, the fact that, when it's lying in this state, it could crack. And so how do you get it here onto the job? How do you put that in place, right? How do you install that?
That is crazy.
And
Yeah.
so, certainly with the crane, but in 1910, when they redid this, how did they do it?
It's so funny to hear you say that, because I think about the pyramids all the time, where it's like, how did they build those things?
Yeah.
And now you're here, a builder in the modern day, like, how did they do that?
Yeah, no, that's very, very accurate.
Do you think they'll ever wonder how we did our accent walls? How did they do this?
How did they tack in these geometric shapes on the wall? Big fan
Probably
of
not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I don't know if the wall itself will make it through.
Yeah.
The test of time.
Yeah.
Why is it all cracked and molded up there?
So this house, since they was originally saved in 1970, has done the tape and bondo repairs. That literally just, oh no, we have an emergency. There's rotted wood. We got to raise money, and so the nonprofits that own this just never had money.
Yeah.
And so the new owner has money, and we're restoring it back to its. The command was you make it back like it was originally in 1904,
Wow.
1910.
That's
So,
awesome.
It's awesome. It's
True patron.
True patron.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
crazy.
That's why all the masonry we've done. This roof is coming off. It's not the original roof.
No
We
way.
found out later. All that rotted eave stuff is going to get repaired finally. There's been a bunch of band-aids that have been done to this house that aren't any good, and so we're going to fix those.
Do you think it was good for the time being, or it's just time to?
It depends. I mean, there's a few. We've done work here, so I know those repairs were good, right? We replaced sash and done things and built new sash and stuff. But some of those repairs, like on these cornices, were literally bondo, and so they really weren't, or it was bad wood, and so it just didn't work, didn't go very well.
Yeah. Well, right on.
All right.
We heading inside?
Yeah, let's go. I want to show you some areas where they cleaned it, and then we can go inside.
So
after that.
we're limestone cleaning?
No, we're going to go to
masonry?
the brick cleaning over to the side.
Let's do it.
So a couple things to point out. One, the fact that this is a solid masonry building, okay? That means that there's no stud walls. If we build a house today, when you do a brick house, you have a 2x4 wall, which is your structural wall.
Okay.
And then there's a sheathing and an inch gap, and then there's brick, okay?
Yeah.
And that brick is a veneer. It's a skin. It doesn't support anything, doesn't hold anything up. In fact, if they don't lag it into the framing, sometimes it falls down. And so that's the way we build today, okay? The way this was built is that there is no interior stud wall, okay? This is a masonry wall that's probably 16 inches thick, that's made up of these layers of brick, okay?
Yeah.
The layers of brick are bonded together, okay? So they bond them together. It's called bonding.
That's what these are, right?
Yes, and so that is called a header.
So that goes back in, and then the other one.
And that header is what's showing is inside there, and it laps into the second width of the brick, right? And each layer is called a width, okay? And so it's layered together. But yes, so the first thing is you've noticed the bonding. And this bonding pattern where it goes header, 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 it's called a Flemish bond, okay? And an English bond, of course we all knew that.
Just make sure, Richard, I knew that because,
An English bond
I didn't want to say it.
is where you'll go 5 courses, and then there'll be a course of headers, okay?
Yeah.
So there'll be all running bond, and then a course of headers. You two are not good together. The second thing to notice is that, when you cut in an opening for a window, okay, how do you support the brick above, okay? This is called a brick arch, okay, with gauged brick and stone, okay? So the reason that that shapes out this way and shapes out that way, angled like that, is that is a self-supporting masonry system. They've got a steel lintel in there, but they don't need it.
That's why I was curious, like, because on a lot of homes that I've seen you show off, you're like, they don't use the steel, but they've got the...
Yeah, they've got a steel in there, and I'm sure it's like kind of a belts and suspenders thing. There's just kind of a, you know, in other words, you don't need that, but you're doing it anyway.
Belts and suspenders.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So you don't need both a belt and a suspender to support your pants.
Yeah.
It's one or the other if they use both the belts and suspenders.
So you think he was just probably like, just give me the best, the guy who built it?
Yeah.
I want both.
That's cool.
And so,
And that's all limestone. It's the same limestone that they use.
yep. We believe, we actually had the limestone tested. We thought it might be an Indiana limestone. Now, Indiana is famous for a very hard limestone. And so it's a little bit harder than the Texas limestone, but we priced it at, we had it sent it to an expert and he tested it and he said, no, it's Texas limestone. So,
Wow.
Anyway, all this will be cleaned, right? If you look at all the black spotting and where it's dark and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that's just like that column. So that
Damage, water.
fungus and the other things have gotten into that, so it's all being cleaned. And then we're going back in here and we're repointing, okay? And so the repointing is this soft limestone. So what they did was they took this limestone, they had to cut out 3 pounds of limestone of mortar. Okay, so they ran around this building, went scrape, 3 pound section, sent it to a lab. The lab tested that and said, okay, that's a type N or that's a type S. Basically, it's a
What do
lime.
all those mean?
Well, it's a lime-based mortar. Okay, which is lime is your binder that keeps it together, or a cement-based mortar, okay? And a cement-based mortar is like Portland, it's very hard, and on historic buildings you do not use a lime mortar. Now, what we found here is that the house and everything else is lime. The wall has cement in it, okay?
Wait, why would you not use lime on a historic build?
You would.
Oh, you would?
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you use cement?
Because it breaks the brick up, okay? So there's the thing called spalting, okay? And basically, if I repointed this with Portland cement, okay?
Repointing is just putting new mortar in?
Yeah. You're scraping out a section and you're putting mortar back in, okay?
Did they do that here?
Yes, that's been you'll see some repairs around here where there's some different colors. Like that looks like a repair in
Yeah.
there. See how that's white and that's kind of gray?
Yeah.
That's where they're gonna put in a Portland, more Portland, okay, depending on how much they put in there, that it can cause the brick's face to go pop. And we'll see that on that other house. And in the next episode, we'll show you where some of that's happened. But that spalting is why you don't use Portland. You want lime.
Why is that? It's the brick, the concrete
Because the lime's,
expanding?
yes, and so water gets in there, it freezes, it breaks the face off the brick.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't, see, the way this is designed historically, going back thousands of years, the Romans used brick, is that the mortar is the sacrificial material here. So the bricks are fired to be there. The mortar is only sacrificial. It's meant to fall apart so that the brick doesn't.
So I've heard you say that a ton, and now you're like working on restoring a historic building that is primarily brick. Would you guys scrape out all the mortar in here and then just re-put it in? Is that what's like?
That's the scope. I mean, this is almost $1 million contract for the masonry on this job.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it is repointing, cleaning, fixing all the stone, all the masonry, all the stuff that's going on here. I mean, it's a really big project.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so essentially in a situation like this where you've got like the two different kinds, you're going to scrape it all out and make it a consistent.
Yeah, and so scraping it all out really means you go back about an inch.
Because this is all the way through.
Right. So you don't go all the way through. You're not taking it apart. But look down there. I mean, that mortar's completely gone.
Well, and then the mortar's perishable, so, but it's only going to lose its, like it's only going to fall out in an area where it's being like weather hit, right?
Yes, I mean, look, it's a product that this house has been here 120 years. You know, that mortar job is at least a 50 to 75 year solution.
Yeah.
Now, one last thing that you'll see in here, a little subtle detail. You see this thing right there? There's kind of
like
a bead.
a tool line?
Yeah, there's a tool
wow.
line. It's a bead, okay? And so you actually have this, you can see it right there. There's a little line there. There's a little bit of a...
Like a round over?
Yeah, round over. So there's what masons have is what's called a striking tool.
Yeah, it's
okay?
really evident right here.
Yeah, you can see it there, and you'll see it on the other side better. But so basically what happened is historically you had a number of raking tools, okay? And the raking tools, sometimes you'll take the mortar and you'll take your trowel and just go flat across it, which is what it looks like they did there. They just went, you know, flat across. You've also got raking tools that will come in and make, like there's a V-grooved raking tool that would create a little V there. There's a raking tool that creates a bead, okay? And that bead is evident here. So when we point this and go back, we're going to go back with that bead.
When they do that,
And you don't see that here, right? Because they didn't do it right.
No, I was going to ask, when they do that, do they do the verticals or is just the horizontals?
Yes, so what happens is they do all the way vertical, and then they just do a little short,
I see it
there's
right
a little short thing that goes down.
Right there.
The vertical bead and how that comes together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm looking at this
That's
corner
crazy.
and the pattern all the way up is so consistent.
Well, what's
Oh
awesome?
my gosh,
what's
you're right.
Awesome with historic masonry
Flemish.
is the masons were the trim carpenters of this era, and even going back to the colonial era. And you'll see them use some stonework and some brickwork, like at Williamsburg, where especially because you've got header. How do you make it so that it blends into this wall right? So that
I don't
notice
know.
they've got header. That
is
means
so
they've
crazy.
lapped it together properly.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, because it's lapped behind there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just like a tile.
Right.
Yeah, look.
It's not a tile, right?
This that one's shooting back, right? Then that means that one is in the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that was another Flemish one, like going back,
and
but
so
it's not.
you end up,
So
you know,
crazy.
that whole. I think that example you just said of the tile, right? It's not a skin, right?
Yeah.
It's actually a structural piece. That's really awesome.
Well, in the same right, the brickwork on this house as a whole is not a
Veneer.
skin.
Yeah.
Like it is in today. Like
Well,
you have a
and
veneer
so
on a
just
house.
last thing here on the porch, look at this porch floor, okay? So really nice houses in the turn of the century did not just do wood floors, they did tile typically, especially in 1900 into the 1920s. And so this is obviously a very nice one.
Yeah.
And it's just been restored and redone because there weren't drains in it. It was actually falling apart underneath, but they've restored it now.
Is that marble new, like the marble steps, or is that original?
It was there.
It was
they may
there.
have restored it. I
It's
didn't see
pretty.
that. Yeah.
What did insulation look like with brick? Like, is it still insulated pretty well?
Well, so what you have is what's called a thermal mass, okay? And so your brick wall, like I think a regular 3-width brick wall has an R value of I think
R is
16.
like the thermal value.
It's like 16, and so the thermal mass gives you a lot of insulation. Basically, is the quick answer. And so
Does that mean just because
we
the
can
house
Google
is
that.
so big?
No,
Or 'cause
it
the wall
mean-
is so thick?
It means, like, what R value measures is the exchange rate from heat to cold, and the efficiency of stopping
Of
that,
retaining it,
retaining that. The mass of this brick wall
So the wall is so thick.
is so thick it can't travel through there.
It's like
so
old
it has
castles.
it has a thermal mass and a thermal rating that's really strong. So that's your answer.
Makes sense.
Other than just like this sheet of glass is you don't see any waves in that. At least I don't think you do.
I don't see any really, yeah.
So that means that piece of glass is a piece of plate glass. Now, plate glass is something that you start to see in storefronts and things like that. So this is a very expensive piece of glass as opposed to cylinder glass. And so you're seeing another case of them spending extra money to have a better piece of glass, because that piece of size of glass right there, that's huge in 1904. And so
Yeah.
it's not, typical.
Yeah.
And
And now, are these paned, or is that just a design drawn on it?
No, those are individual panes, okay? That is leaded glass, and it's called leaded glass because that little round piece is a piece of lead. And
Good question. I didn't know that.
it's called lead caming, and if you look at the lead caming, it actually has a little lip, and the glass comes in there, and then they actually fold over the lead. So
Really?
the lead is really soft, and you'll see leaded glass oftentimes start slumping because it's just such a soft material, and the glass is so heavy.
Is it the glass that's slumping, or is it the actual lead?
We'll see. It's the lead that's slumping.
Okay.
And so we'll see a big piece of historic stained glass inside, and you'll see the way that they have metal rods on the inside that are all welded to it to keep it from slumping. So
Nice.
but yeah, that's a
I never knew that.
leaded glass.
I always thought it was like applied over a sheet of glass.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I thought it was too.
So we learned something. Okay, let's go inside. Okay, so we're standing in kind of an arts and crafts, male, coffered ceiling, heavy, thick wood.
It's like the men's room.
Yeah, and so there would have
not a
been a billiards
restaurant.
table in here, and so you got a lot of cool details. You got circular windows in here. You got this high wainscoted wall with the plate rail on top, beam ceiling. Let me show you this fireplace. But notice that how even colored this is. How they have dyed the mortar. Okay, so the mortar is actually dyed red, and then we've got a gauged brick arch that is truly self-supporting. Now, a gauged brick arch would actually be made at a factory. Okay, and you would order it based on your opening and your height here, and you would say, based on this radius, I need a gauged brick opening. And so they would make you in all these individual bricks. So all of these bricks would then get laid into a form and then sent out, kind of laid out, and then the mason would put them in place.
Because they're all angled a little bit, right?
They're all angled.
Each one is on that
Oh,
radius.
that's
Each
really
one's
cool.
on that radius, exactly. But notice this mortar line. It's about 1/8 of an inch, and you'll see that in really fine brickwork that you have a very small mortar line.
Is that because of the fact that it's retaining fire, or is it just?
No, I told you that story about that house in Dallas that was being built, and the architect came over and said, "No, these mortar lines need to be a quarter of an inch, not 3/8." And they're like, "Well, why?" He goes, "Well, if you want the building to last, 450 years without any maintenance, I need a really thin mortar line." Okay, so because it's the sacrificial deal, the less of it that's exposed, the better. So, then they went back to the yard and were like, we need to cut our stone differently. We need to be more precise. We need to be more, skilled. If we're cutting more miter joints in wood, what's the minimum required gap that's done when you're wood? Maybe a 1/16th, a 32nd or something like that? Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is I want 0.
Yeah, okay.
And so
yeah.
you're like, oh, I could do that, but I mean, I got to spend longer. I got to clamp my things. I got to do things. And if it's out of square, I got to figure out the new, ratios and things like that. And so
I'm on my way to the moon.
It's going to take it's going to take you longer, right? And so the same thing here. If I ask your basically your slop gap to be, instead of 3/8, I need it to be 1/8. It's like,
yeah, and then you have like less space for correction of leveling
Absolutely,
stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Well, and then every brick is differently sized too, right?
Well, that's what they're going to say, is that you need an industrial brick to do it, okay? Or in the colonial period, they needed to rub their bricks and have incredible precision, right? But yes, your brick does have to be
pretty dang close.
pretty damn close.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the coffered ceiling, slats that are in there.
You're painting this, right, in the restoration?
So,
Like that house door?
a coffered ceiling, okay, if you go back to the European period when houses were built, in the 1700s and earlier, 1600s, they had solid masonry walls, okay, and then they had bricks, joists that are made of wood, okay? So if we were, in a 1500s house, those beams going across, now these are all box beams, okay? But those beams going across would be much closer together.
What's a box beam? Sorry. I nodded like I
So,
knew.
see the big beams?
Yeah,
So a
for
box
sure.
beam means basically it's built like a box. Instead of being a solid beam,
Oh,
you got
okay.
piece,
I'm tracking now.
and it's built like a box.
So it's fake. It's
It's
not like a
fake,
full beam,
right?
yeah.
And you can see the
Yeah, I
pieces
see.
that come
I see
down.
it now.
So historically, it would have been a major beam going across here, right?
Because it would probably have been supporting.
Would have been supporting the wood floor. And so you're looking at,
Got it.
historically, the wood floor above, okay? And, you'd hear stories of the reasons they, started plastering them in and closing them in is because dust would come down through the wood floor, through the floors. You'd be eating dinner, someone would be upstairs, and dust would be coming down into your plate. Okay, so they began to plaster them over, but the reason I get frustrated about beam ceilings today is because they're used as a trim thing to convey that it's originally an old, and so if you look at a real one, they're much closer together, and then they've got like these cross beams, the ones that makes the box, there would be one every, 18 inches, every 16 inches.
Really?
And so they're really heavy ceilings. There's tons of wood up there because, you got your masonry walls on the outside that's supporting that floor going above you. So, what was your question?
So this one is does this one irritate you because how stretched out it is?
No, because what they've done is, the whole coffered ceiling is a decorative way of treating that you're right. And so, and this works, like the whole room works.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, even proportionally, like these are matching with the coffered ceilings.
yeah,
like
I mean, you've got the
wainscoted wall.
chamfered edges here, right? You
Yeah.
got the chamfered
Yeah.
edges
Does the
there.
same thing.
You've got, the quarter sawn oak. You've got quarter sawn oak. You've got the plate rail, which is all parts of that arts and crafts edition. Even the hardware on the windows, those lifts right there, that's an arts and crafts little thing with that kind of iron, piece.
The studded pieces.
Yeah, the studded piece, and so
That's crazy.
it all works, right? It's all part of that same tradition and period. Now, we'll go over to that room, and it's very classical, right? And so we've got paneled walls. It's French, and so it's very different. And so part of what they were doing in this period, it was just let's do a French room. Let's do an arts and crafts room. Let's do it.
I like it.
Now,
Yeah.
this house is really heavily steeped in that arts and crafts period. Arts and crafts kind of ends by 1920. So this room, that entry hall, that dining room also has a plate rail.
Yeah.
So it's pretty steeped into that arts and crafts tradition.
Why don't more people do
Now, you
that?
don't see that on the outside, but
Why don't you encourage more people to do things like that?
Resale value.
you know why?
know.
I think that it's cheapened so often that people can't look at that. They look at the historic stuff, that's fine, but the attempts that most builders and people make to copy that is such an abomination.
Yeah.
that-
You mean my sign off Etsy isn't cool? That's what it is.
That's what it is. And so it's so bad that our clients would never ask us to do that because it's been cheapened, okay? And that's why I think classical moldings aren't really appreciated, and everybody likes this clean things because the knockoffs are so bad that people are like, that just looks cheap now. In fact, when it's done well, it's stunning.
Yeah.
So Thistle Hill, I mean, it's probably what was here, right? Like thorns or something? I don't know. Is that kind of why?
Oh, I don't know. No, because I think the family had roots back in Sweden or something,
Okay.
or another country.
Yeah, whatever language this is.
And it was hearkening back to another place. Like Winterthur is named after their ancestral winter home in Sweden or Switzerland or wherever
Really?
they're from. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think that's such
I
a
think
cool
they name
tradition.
things like
Like,
that.
I don't know. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, if you know what it's going to be called, like the place is going to be called, or you get a name for a house, it's kind of cool.
We have clients that want to name their properties
Yeah.
and go through a lot of exercise, to try to figure out.
That's awesome.
What do we want to call it?
Well, it brings a lot of like richness to
Tradition,
it. Yeah,
richness, history. Yeah, no, for sure.
it's fun. It's super fun.
So,
Oh, they're curbed.
yeah. So I made a mistake. I had a client, and I didn't even think about it at the time. There's a curved rotunda that we were building, and we ended up building the doors square.
Been to that house.
And they should have been round.
Whoa.
Is
And
it,
it wasn't. Yes,
Yeah.
it wasn't until later that I go,
You've been there.
why did we not make these round? Now,
That would be super
it's
hard.
awesome. It's awesome. It's like
door?
it's like another level. And so how you do it, right, is that the rails are curved, right? And what they do for the glass is they are making cylinder glass. There's still companies that do it. They make a mold, and you tell them your radius. And so they make the glass, they lay it out on the mold and lay it down. Falls down on the mold, it's stuck to that radius, it cools, they pick it up and they send it to you. And so that's how you get your glass round, and that's, you know, making these. But think about making curved stiles and rails and everything else. It's awesome.
So you're basically taking a chunk of wood that's at least that big and cutting it out on a bandsaw?
Okay, so you're either making it out of a big piece like that, you're laminating it up, right? You can also laminate it up. But yes.
And this is the same profile on your 100-year window?
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to restore these. So every window in this building comes out, goes back to our shop, gets repaired, comes back. We're going to restore the frames and then put everything back in.
I got a question for you while I'm bringing this up. On this profile right here, I've looked in some of the historic pattern books you recommend, and I'm seeing like different profiles here that are like really unique.
Yeah. In fact, if you look at a 1904 molding catalog, there are, you know, or even 1890, there are 6 profiles that you can choose from.
Would you bring those in, like to your 100?
We have before.
That's cool.
There's
like one with the little rounded top.
Yeah, there's the little bead on the top. There's and so you'll see like a Gothic molding. If this was Gothic, you would see almost a little pinnacle, like a little steeple thing done really well. So a lot more variety. By 1920, there's only one.
Yeah, it's this one.
And
it looks good.
Notice these stops have the screws in them, so the stops are adjustable. That's something we're doing in our 100-year window. So instead of nailing these in, you're screwing these.
With the seasonal thing.
So the seasonal, so you can tighten your windows up if they feel a little leaky. You can, adjust that screw.
That's just so crazy.
And it looks beautiful, like when you have the white window trim with the brass.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's better. So. Yeah, fun stuff.
They wouldn't have bent the wood though, like heated it up, like you do it with the boat. Yeah.
Well, some woods steam and bend better than others. Okay, that's a big piece of wood. Like ash is a famous wood that bends really well and does all that stuff. Probably not.
Makes sense.
Probably not.
Because this is what, mahogany, maple?
Well, I was just looking at that. This is oak, and I don't know whether that sash is oak. I don't think it is. And so they just stained.
I don't see it like an oak grain in it.
I don't either.
So did they stain this oak?
Apparently, it looks like it. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so there's probably too much here, right? It just, we've gone into one room.
Yeah, we were just discussing as we walked over here. We got 5, 6, 7 episodes here.
Yeah. But that speaks to how much we can learn from the past, in my mind, right? And just how they used to do it.
When it's done well.
You look at it and you go, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. I was pointing out the fireplaces. There's fireplaces in every room, but that's the only wood mantle in this house. I think, that tells that story of how we, fire prevention and fire damage was terrible. You think about the Great Fire in Chicago, the Great Fire in San Francisco.
London.
Those things happen because, a fire gets out of control. And so, you can't find wood mantles in a millwork catalog in 1920, okay? Because most people were putting in stuff like this, okay? That's all brick, that's all tile, right? That's all stone over there. Top. And so, anyway, learning from the past. I want to take you upstairs and show you the bird's eye maple room. Because there's a mahogany room we can walk through and see bird's eye maple. And then when we go up the stairs, I want us to look at the leaded glass because there's, much more lead and glass there, and you'll see some of the supporting bars that go there that are holding that up. Because, if you just look at that window right there, that's try to look at the gate or try to look through that leaded glass. It is some very figured, heavy, one historic glass, but then the lead came in and everything else.
Can I ask a question about these sliding doors?
Yeah.
We have one in our house. I hate these things, pocket doors, because it always pops off its track and everything else like that. These were presumably spent a lot of money on and built well. How did they, can I go, may I?
Yeah, do you want this one is actually better because you can pull it out of the wall. So they've got pocket door, pocket door, pocket door, pocket door, big pocket door, and so they're everywhere.
They're massive.
Yeah, and so this one has fallen off the tracks, right? And that's why it's kind of cantered back. And so
one built.
That's why you hate them.
They you know, the castings and everything else and the wheels are, and you'll hear it when we pull it out, and you know, mortar and dust is falling into the track, and so they're gimpy compared, you know, our house built in '62, you know, that sliding door that blocks off, I mean, it just sounds like a train wreck every time you move that thing.
Yeah.
And so those are very cheap. We've got better ones today, but the quick answer is these are problems still. They had a couple simple things for fixing it, but they, yeah.
Do you like them?
I do, yeah. The ones that we put in at the barn,
Yeah.
you know, the hardware is really nice. It's like top of the line hardware.
And you get
And
slow
soft
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, soft close.
Do you like them?
Pocket doors?
Yes, ma'am.
They solve a lot of problems. Sometimes you'll go into an old house and you'll do a door dance, like open this and close this. You know,
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
a pocket door
Yeah.
can sometimes take all those out. And so
I've never heard it called that. That's funny.
so it solves some problems that way. And so I don't mind them.
Well, cool. Can I go?
Yeah, let's go look at this one. So we learned a lot when I opened this up, because I did this exact same thing. Now, this room's been painted, and I'll show you an area, but this is all mahogany in here, original mahogany. And so, you know, there's a couple things here. One, there's going to be a stop that I'm going to have to lift up to pull this door out. So there's basically a little key that falls down that keeps the door from coming all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also see up here that sometimes there's a stop put right here so that the door stops. Sometimes the tracks are put together and you can pull it all the way through. These are...
Was something tacked there?
Yeah, something was tacked there. So I'm opening this up, and you can see that cleat thing right here. I don't know if you guys want to come around.
Right
see
there.
that thing?
And it just falls down on its own?
Well, what would happen is I would do like that, and then I'd stick a screwdriver in there and it'd fall down like that. These are very crude blocks to keep the door from going too far into the pocket, okay? But
It's lost forever.
but you can also see like that, see that's all mahogany back there?
Yeah.
So that's when we took this off, it's like, oh my gosh, there's the original wood right there.
So what is this? Just a veneer, or did they just paint it over?
They just painted over it.
Okay.
So.
Oh, so that's how you knew they painted this room.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's got paint on it. That also helps.
What was your first clue?
Well, that gave it away, but
So anyway, that's how they did that. Does that help?
yeah, that's awesome.
Do you still not like pocket doors?
I still hate them.
Okay.
This just confirms, right? That even on the nicest ones, they can be.
So the way, just so you know, if I looked up in here, and there's two wheels, okay, and there's a long screw that goes down that's threaded, okay, that holds onto the door. And if you tighten that screw, it lifts up, and if you loosen the screw, it drops down. So if our doors are binding, you could actually get up in there with a big flathead screwdriver. Do what?
Binding, is that just dragging?
Which is dragging, yeah.
Okay.
Then you could actually loosen it and lift it up or lower it down. They were adjustable,
Yeah.
okay, which a lot of our doors
they have
aren't.
two?
There's one on either side. And that's how you would have adjusted the door.
That's super cool.
But, you know, if we look at this door, look at this. See this?
It's binding.
No.
New word. The back track is not tight enough.
The back track, no, is fallen. So
it's just off.
I think it's off, okay? So that's why this door is like cantilevered like this. And so the only way I know to repair it is to actually open up the wall on either side, figure out what's going on, because you're gonna have to disassemble in some respects. And so, you know, we'll probably cut a hole in that wall right there, get it back up on the track, see whether the wheel's broken, see if the track's falling down.
Because if the track's falling down, that's the worst of all.
Yeah, I don't know how else to do it.
And you don't have to cut through this, right? You can just cut above and get your hands up in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I would leave that trim there. Mm-hmm. But here's another arts and crafts room, right? with the plate rail, and this kind of plastered leather.
Would they put plates on the plate rail? Is that a dumb question?
No, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is.
That's why it's called that.
I'm just kidding. Hey, that's kind of cool. The fluting starts right at the antithesis.
Yeah,
That's awesome. They're
What
like highlighting it. You know how the antithesis is like 1/3.
Okay, I see where you're saying it. That's crazy.
That is cool. I'm gonna take a picture of that.
The other kind of fun thing, like looking at this, like these are all evenly spaced, right?
Yeah.
And then they've matched it, I mean, almost perfectly. Look, there's the same gap here as it is here. I mean, it is even all the way through. That's wild.
It's actually like someone laid it out that way.
That's crazy.
They didn't just start hammering
That's
away.
crazy.
It is
Well,
really cool.
it's those details that you look at and you're like, oh my gosh, someone really thought through this. Someone really figured this out. And
It's funny saying that because we see this today and it just doesn't happen. Like
I know.
That's just so funny.
Would you call that fretwork?
No.
No. What is that?
What would I call that?
It's an accent wall, but you just tacked in a geometric shape.
Fretwork. It's it's a decorative. It's decoration. It's ornamentation.
Do you like that, or?
I think it's interesting. I mean, they've got it on the windows too, and they're painted over there.
They had it in the other room as well.
It reads to me almost like lattice kind of work. So.
So what's the
if
difference between
we're in
this
a
and my
garden
accent
room,
walls?
then maybe that's what it is. What's that?
What's the difference between this and my accent walls?
Well, the accent wall is no style.
End of question.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a style. This is an arts and crafts style. So it does follow a tradition there.
So you say.
The accent wall
Mine falls in the Etsy style.
Is a decoration that is from nothing, right? It's not like you go, I want this to. You just say, well, I'm going to throw a bunch of geometric shapes on there, and it's going to be interesting.
Like squares and X's.
Are you really going there? Are you really going there?
Really not. I just wanted to push your buttons.
Yeah, you are. Because I'm about to take you down.
I'll take you down.
Let's go before we run out of time. We're going to walk up the stairs, we're going to look at the leaded glass, and then we're going to see the maple room. All right, before we talk about this room, did you see the leaded glass on the way up?
I did.
Yeah, those bars that go in between are supporting bars. Sometimes they've covered them up, but it's a thick iron rod that's actually tied into the wood on either side, supporting all that heavy glass.
You also pointed out the
tiny piece.
I mean,
so each one of those pieces is an individual.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you get a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch piece, right? And so, but you think of all the trades that would go on in this period of time, and the amount of detail and the amount of minutia they went into to get stuff right. It's pretty awesome.
I think that's part of the reason why I
loved it. What?
How fast do you think they were at it?
I think they were super fast. I've seen videos of people glazing wood windows.
Wood windows.
Okay, and so you get the glass in there, and they set this easel up, and they're like putties in their hand. They're going,
yep,
and we're like, today we're like, meh, 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 meh.
It's so hard. I tried it on that first sash I built.
Really?
I was like there for 5 hours, like, how come I can't? And it's still not like perfect.
Can't get it smooth. It just drives you crazy.
It's a craft.
So the quick answer is they were,
Speed demons.
They were experts in their field. And that's what's crazy.
I think about that John Henry thing all the time. The guy who tried to beat the railroad thing?
Yeah.
There's like a guy, they were building railroads, and he drove the stakes in by hand, and then they had a machine that did it, and he raced the machine and beat it, but then
of course he got
passed
tired.
out from exhaustion, of course, but
so
that'd be
anyway,
fast.
just real quickly, we'll finish up this episode. Bird's eye maple. Okay, bird's eye maple is a naturally occurring defect in maple that has these little bird's eyes, which is and it's graded. Like when you order bird's eye, you have to say, well, how birdsy is it, or how
how many eyes per square inch?
No, I don't know what you say, but you definitely, like when I made furniture out of bird's eye, I went and culled all the material I want, because the lumberyard says, well, that's bird's eye. It has 3 bird's eyes in a whole board, and you're like, okay, it is, but it's not enough.
Right.
And so you go find something that has this kind of character, and you try to put it together.
That's so pretty.
It's amazing. But then you look too how they made these doors, right? This side is oak, and this side is bird's eye. So they have veneers that, you know, and panels and moldings and stuff to make these things. So
all these are panels. It's all fake?
No, just the door.
I was kidding. Trying to get under your skin.
You're really doing it today, aren't you?
Yeah, you know, I had a 3 a.m. flight, waking up.
Yeah,
No,
so
it's
anyway,
so beautiful.
we've only just scratched the surface on this house, but the level of detail and the level of, you know, obviously a very nice house built at that time, but, you know, a lot to learn.
Look at this. This is the worst I've ever seen in a historic house. The worst, like, you know how in some of the modern builds that we've looked at, like on Zillow and everything, we have like these kind of moldings where they're like cut in half because they didn't
run
space
into a
it.
wall and stuff like that.
That's the closest I've ever seen anything get. Is that bad, or is that just kind of like?
I think it's good.
I think they made it into a nice detail.
Yeah, I think it's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice if there was a little bit more room.
Sometimes you see like a 1-inch gap in there and it actually looks worse.
Yeah.
Than
with
because
the wallpaper.
It would look weird.
Yeah.
It really draws your eye to it, but yeah. All right, guys.
Thanks for watching this episode. Hope you guys like the new format. Like Brent was saying at the beginning, let us know any thoughts, or you know, if this is too visual for you audio listeners out there, we'd love to help identify some more details in our words. But I think we like these. These are
on our
helpful.
vocabulary.
Yeah, we've really got a English class. All right.
Thanks for watching.